I was getting used to working from home after being laid off. My apartment was small, but I loved the view of the park. I could hear children laughing and cars honking. Inside, it felt too quiet sometimes. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I can't forget what happened. One evening, I was deep into a design project. My headphones were on, blocking out everything. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. The message read, "I can see you." I laughed, thinking it was a prank. But a chill ran down my spine. I shrugged it off and went back to work. A few days later, I got another message from a different number. This one mentioned my favorite cafe. It said I had been there last weekend. My stomach dropped. Was this a coincidence? I felt uneasy, but I told myself to ignore the texts and keep designing. Then more messages came. They felt invasive. They knew when I worked late, when I took breaks, and even what I watched on TV. My heart raced as I read them. I felt like my privacy was being taken away. I was scared. I didn't feel safe in my own home. One afternoon, I peered outside my window. I thought I saw a figure standing near the trees, just watching. I blinked, and it vanished. Was my mind playing tricks? I shook my head and tried to focus again. I checked my phone, hoping for an explanation. There was nothing. The following day, I received a photo. It showed my apartment, taken from the street, capturing my living room. My breath caught in my throat. I felt cold all over. I couldn't believe it. I looked around the room. The curtains were drawn. Who had taken that picture? That night, sleep eluded me. I lay in bed, listening for any sound outside. Every creak echoed loudly in my ears. My mind raced. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw movement outside. I froze. I didn't want to look but couldn't help myself. I peeked through the curtains, then I saw him. He was just standing there, staring up at my window. I felt sick. I didn't know what to do. My fingers trembled as I thought about calling for help. Should I shout? Should I hide? Then he lifted his phone and sent another message. "Why do you keep looking away?" I gasped. I turned to run, but when I looked back, he was gone. Now, I don't know if I'm truly being watched or if it's all in my head. All I know is that something feels very wrong. I can't shake the feeling of being hunted, like something is coming for me. I can still hear the distant laughter of children, but it feels different now. It feels like a warning. The next few days were a blur. I spent most of the time cooped up inside, trying to focus on work but failing miserably. I kept my curtains drawn, avoiding the urge to look outside. It felt like a prison, one I had built with my own fear. On the third day after my terrifying encounter, I decided to take action. I needed answers. Maybe it was time to talk to someone. I considered calling the police, but part of me hesitated. Would they even take my fears seriously? Instead, I reached for my phone and messaged a close friend. I didn't go into detail, just hinted that I felt uneasy, like someone was watching me. I needed to know if I was losing my mind. She replied almost instantly. "Want to meet for coffee? I can come over." The thought of being alone was overwhelming. I quickly agreed. When she arrived, I felt a bit of relief wash over me. Being with someone else made the weight I was carrying feel a little lighter. We sat at my small kitchen table, and I couldn't help but unload everything. The texts, the picture, the man outside my window. Her brow furrowed as I spoke. "This is serious," she said. "You should do something about it. Have you thought about getting security cameras?" I hadn't. The thought crossed my mind, but buying cameras felt like admitting I was afraid. "I don't want to make it a bigger deal than it is," I replied, a bit defensively. That we changed the subject, but I could feel her concern. After some idle chatter, the conversation turned to the park outside. She mentioned how those kids I heard laughing had been playing more lately. That was odd, I thought. Had I really heard them every day for the past week? I felt like I was in a fog, unable to process reality properly. As she was leaving, I felt a pang of anxiety clutch at my chest. "Thanks for coming," I said, trying to smile. Once the door clicked shut behind her, unease settled back in. I moved to the window, drawn by a strange impulse. I cautiously lifted the curtain and peered outside. The park looked peaceful, but a chill ran down my spine when I realized it was empty. No laughter, no children. I glanced around in a panic. Was someone out there? Just as I was about to turn away, I noticed a figure on the far corner of the park. It looked familiar. I squinted, and my heart dropped as I recognized his silhouette. It was him standing near the swings, his phone pointed in my direction. I stumbled back from the window, my breath quickening. Then, a buzz pierced through the silence. Another message. Trembling, I glanced at my phone. My hands shook as I opened it. "Why did you let her leave?" My stomach twisted. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The walls felt like they were closing in as dread washed over me. I was being cornered, both physically and emotionally. I stood there, paralyzed with terror. Suddenly, the lights in my apartment flickered. I felt a wave of panic. Was the power going out? Or was something more sinister at play? Everything went dark. I stood in the darkness, frozen and confused. My heart raced, the silence around me felt deafening. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to pull in some light. The screen illuminated my trembling hands, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I quickly opened my messages, hoping to find clarity. But the darkness around me was heavy and closing in. My mind raced, retracing my steps, trying to make sense of what just happened. Suddenly, I felt the unsettling awareness that I was not alone. A soft scuffling sound made me hold my breath. Was it my imagination? Or was there truly something lurking in the shadows? I stepped cautiously toward the front door, but the sound stopped. The only thing I could hear was the rhythmic pounding of my heart. I reached for the door handle, pausing just as I pushed it open. I reminded myself of the man in the park. I couldn't let fear control me. I stepped outside, the cold air hitting me like a slap. The park was eerily tranquil, just as it had been when I last looked. I scanned my surroundings, nervously looking for any signs of movement, but all I saw were the deserted swings slowly creaking in the wind. Just when I thought I was imagining things again, another message popped up on my phone. "I see you." Chills ran down my spine. I instinctively glanced over my shoulder and peered into the darkness of my apartment. Had he been watching me this entire time? My fingers trembled as I typed back. "Who are you?" No response came. I stood there, waiting, feeling more exposed than ever. My phone buzzed again. "Find me." The message sent shockwaves through me. My mind raced in circles. Find him? Was he serious? I felt like I was on a twisted treasure hunt with no clear directions, only fear guiding me. I hesitated, contemplating my next move. Should I go back inside? Call the police? But would they take my story seriously? I felt trapped. My usual safe space was now a source of anxiety. Then, I noticed movement near the swings again. My breath hitched. There he was, the figure closer now, his face shrouded in darkness. I could see him now, his posture relaxed as he stood there watching me, waiting. Then, all at once, my phone buzzed again. "I'm closer than you think." Panic surged through me. I remained rooted to the spot, paralyzed by the growing dread. I could hardly process what he meant. Did he mean I was in danger? Or was he just playing a sick game? The faint sound of footsteps echoed behind me. I turned, heart pounding frantically. Someone was coming from my apartment. My eyes darted between my phone and the man in the park. What had I done to put myself in this situation? Suddenly, the urgency of the situation hit me like a wave. I needed to get away, to leave this nightmare behind. But just as I turned to run, I heard his voice, a whisper in the dark, low and menacing. Don't run. You'll only make it worse. In that moment, I knew I had to confront whatever twisted game he was playing. I was tired of living in fear. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and stepped forward. It was time to find answers. I walked toward the figure, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt oddly brave and terrified all at once, a bubbling mix I couldn't shake off. As I stepped closer, the shadows shifted, giving me a glimpse of the man's features. He looked familiar but was obscured by the dark. Who are you? I demanded, surprised my voice remained steady. He smirked but didn't respond. Instead, he raised a hand and gestured toward the park's trees. Come on, he said, his tone almost inviting. You need to see something. I hesitated. The words swirled in my head. Did I really want to follow him deeper into the night? A small part of me wanted to bolt, but the other part itched for answers. I needed to know what this was all about. Why should I? I shot back, trying to sound tougher than I felt. You're already involved, whether you like it or not. Just trust me. His voice was soothing, almost too calm. I caught myself teetering on the edge of reason, weighing my choices. Fine, I said, taking a step forward despite the gnawing doubt in my gut. He turned and started to walk, glancing back to ensure I was following. The playground path was lit only by the dim glow of the streetlights, casting long, stretching shadows. I kept an eye on him, the air thick with silence. As we approached the edge of the park, my eyes caught something glimmering on the ground. I knelt down to examine it, a small, silver object half buried in the grass. I brushed away the dirt to reveal a pendant, an intricate design etched into the surface. It looked like something from a different era. Is this yours? I asked, holding it up. He stopped, turning slowly. No, he replied, but his gaze flickered with something recognition. Fear. But it's important. You should keep it. He reached for it, but I yanked it away instinctively. Why is it important? He chuckled darkly. Because it connects you to everything. Everything. The word echoed in my mind, and I felt a chill. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. I barely glanced at it, but the moment I did, I felt a sense of dread. The message read, "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" I swallowed hard, staring at the man in front of me. What does that mean? He shrugged, a hint of amusement playing on his lips. Find me. You're running out of time. My instinct screamed at me to leave. I took a step back, feeling the weight of the pendant in my palm. In this game he was playing, I could feel the stakes rising with every word spoken. Suddenly, the thrill of confronting my fear morphed into cold terror. I had to get out of here. Then, everything changed. Lights flickered on all around us. The park lit up, and I could hear voices approaching. Someone else was coming. Let us go, I said, turning on my heel, the pendant squeezed tightly in my fist. But as I moved, he darted in front of me, blocking my path, his expression darkening. It's not over yet. I froze, realizing in that moment I was trapped between him and the approaching lights that would only expose the truth. I stood there, heart racing, as he loomed over me. The lights brightened, flickering across his face, revealing a mixture of urgency and something darker. I studied him, searching for a hint of what to expect next. Move, I demanded, forcing my feet to shift, but he didn't budge. Instead, he leaned closer, and the intensity in his eyes pierced through me. Do you really think running is the answer? His voice dropped to a whisper. You'll never escape what's coming. I shot a glance behind him. The figures in the distance were growing closer. They were voices I didn't recognize, filled with laughter or chatter, completely unaware of the tension between us. I took a shaky breath, feeling adrenaline flood my system again. Who are they? I asked, not ready to accept my predicament. Just curious onlookers for now, he replied, waving a hand dismissively. We need to go. Now. Before I could respond, the laughter grew louder, and I found my instincts kicking in again. I had to make a choice. The pendant felt like it was burning in my palm, as if it held the key to something vital, something that could either save me or doom me. Why should I trust you? His lips curled into a mocking smile. Because time isn't on your side, and neither are they. I risked another glance at the oncoming figures, straining to see their faces. Panic crept back in. I could almost feel the air shift, and I had to act. In a sudden burst of defiance, I moved to sidestep him, headed toward the path that led out of the park. But he was faster. He gripped my arm, his fingers digging in, and inhaled sharply. You don't understand, he said, urgency replacing the calm. You can't leave. Not with that. The grip on my arm stung, and I looked down at the pendant again, its design reflecting the slanting light. What do you mean? His gaze turned serious, his voice lowering. That pendant isn't just a trinket. It's your past, and it ties to everything happening now. You can't just run away, you have to confront it. Before I could piece everything together, a shadow broke from the trees, heading straight for us. It darted towards the light, revealing a tall figure cloaked in darkness. Let her go, the figure demanded, a gravelly voice cutting through the night air. I felt a rush of relief mingled with fear. Who was this new player? The man holding my arm tensed, his grip refusing to loosen. You shouldn't have come here, he warned, his tone menacing. Either you set her free, or I'll make you, the newcomer growled, stepping closer. I recognized that voice now. It was familiar, almost a lifeline in the swirling chaos that moment. I realized the stakes had just escalated. Forces beyond my understanding were converging, and I was right in the middle of it all. Then another buzz cracked through the silence. My phone lit up. Just one word, run. And then everything descended into chaos. I didn't need to be told twice. The buzz from my phone was enough for me to spring into action. I yanked my arm free from his grasp, but the figure still stood in front of me, his dark silhouette blocking my escape. I took a step back, my gaze darting between the two men, searching for an opening. Do you really want to do this? The man holding my arm said, his voice tight with tension. You don't know the danger you're in. The stranger before me straightened, his determination unyielding. You can't keep her here. It's not safe. I felt my heart pound in my chest. Everything seemed surreal, like I was trapped in some twisted dream. Who were these men, and why was I so important to them? The laughter I'd heard earlier suddenly erupted again, sending chills down my spine. I couldn't see their faces, but the energy from those approaching figures felt different now. An ominous warning wrapped around me. She won't understand, the man beside me insisted. He cast a glance at the stranger, assessing him. You're only getting her deeper into this mess. Or maybe I'm pulling her out, the other replied, moving slightly to the side to create space. If you want to keep her safe, let us work together. For a moment, tension hung in the air, thick and electric. I felt trapped between two sides, and I wasn't sure which was worse. Fine, the man next to me finally said, his voice low. He released me but stayed close. We have to move, quickly. The urgency sent a bolt of adrenaline through me. I didn't want to waste another second. I turned to the stranger, desperation flooding my voice. What do we do? He pointed to a narrow path leading deeper into the park, shrouded by towering trees. Follow me. We don't have much time. Without hesitation, I bolted in his direction. My feet hit the ground hard, and I pushed myself forward like it was my last shot. The sounds of laughter and chatter grew more urgent behind me, a sinister reminder that the threat was real and closing in. We moved at a breakneck pace, weaving through the shadows. I felt the pendant around my neck bounce against my chest, a constant presence, almost guiding me. What is this thing? I gasped, still struggling to catch my breath. It's your key, the stranger replied, eyes fixed ahead. But it's also a beacon. Everything they want is tied to it. I absorbed his words, their meaning washing over me as I focused on the path ahead. But in the pit of my stomach was an unsettling truth: I was more connected to all of this than I realized. Then suddenly, without warning, the ground shifted beneath my feet, and I stumbled. My heart dropped when I realized what awaited me. There was a steep drop just ahead. That was when I saw it. The pendant glowed, pulsating with an energy I couldn't comprehend. In that split second, I understood. I held something powerful, something that could either save us or lead us to disaster. I had to decide. I took a deep breath as I caught myself, aware that I was teetering on the edge of a steep drop. The ground loomed beneath me, dark and foreboding. I blinked, trying to clear my head and focus. That glowing pendant felt like a lifeline but also a weight, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my next move could change everything. Keep moving. The stranger urged, grabbing my arm and pulling me back just as laughter erupted louder behind us. The urgency in his tone snapped me out of my daze. I nodded, adrenaline surging again. I didn't want to know who was chasing us. I just wanted to run. That we rushed down the path, dodging overhanging branches and roots that threatened to trip us. I tried to keep pace, the cold night air burning in my lungs. I dared a glance back but saw nothing except the darkness closing in behind us. My heart raced, each beat echoing my fear. Where are we going? I managed to ask, but my voice was shaky. There's a place ahead, he replied, glancing briefly at me, his face still shrouded in shadow. We'll be safe there. Just trust me. Trust. The word twisted in my gut. I didn't really know him. He had just appeared out of nowhere, and now I was relying on him for my life. But the man who had grabbed me earlier had felt dangerous, and the laughter among the trees had sent chills through my entire body. With that thought, I tightened my grip on the pendant, feeling the warm glow seep into my palm. Suddenly, the path forked. One way veered sharply left into thicker underbrush, while the other continued deeper into the park's heart. Before I could ask which way we should go, the stranger chose the right path, his stride unyielding. Follow me. He called over his shoulder. That I hesitated, glancing down both routes. Something about the left path felt off, almost beckoning. But my legs urged me forward, and I rushed after him, not daring to let the uncertainty paralyze me. Then everything changed. A loud crash sounded behind us, a tree splintering in the distance. My heart nearly stopped. Whatever was chasing us had just gotten closer, and the laughter transformed into manic shouting. They're gaining on us. I yelled, my panic rising. We have to hurry. The stranger responded, now more frantic than ever. Just as I thought I'd reach my limit, we stumbled upon an old cabin, barely illuminated by the dim moonlight filtering through thick branches. It looked abandoned but was my only choice. Here. He shouted, thrusting the door open. We ducked inside, slamming it shut behind us. I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath while the stranger rushed to the window. He peered through the cracks, scanning for silhouettes. Are they gone? I whispered, dread coiling in my stomach. I don't know yet, he breathed, tension gripping his voice. His eyes darted around the room, searching for something specific. What are we looking for? I asked, the cabin's musty smell filling my lungs. That he turned to me, urgency hardening his expression. We need to know what they want with you and how to use the pendant. Then his eyes widened, and he moved to a dusty shelf where an old leather book lay. He flipped it open, pages crackling beneath his fingers. The moment he laid eyes on the text, his expression shifted from urgency to alarm. That's when I saw it, the symbol from your pendant. I rushed to his side, peering over his shoulder. The pages, covered in strange drawings and texts, held secrets I didn't comprehend. Just then, a faint noise echoed from outside. Someone was coming. I tensed at the sound, my heart pounding in rhythm with the shifting shadows outside the cabin. The stranger threw a quick glance my way, eyes wide with concern. "Get down!" he hissed as I dropped to the floor without a second thought. The ancient would cold against my skin. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, drowning out everything else, as he crouched low by the window, scanning the area outside. The noise grew closer, the crunch of leaves and twigs underfoot unmistakable. My instincts screamed in warning. I held my breath, forcing myself to silence the rising panic. The faint moonlight revealed the shapes flitting through the underbrush, moving purposefully. The stranger's gaze darted back to the book. "We don't have time," he muttered. "I need to know if there's anything in here that can help." I peered at the pages, trying to decipher the strange symbols and words, but they were like a foreign language. I felt a flicker of frustration. "Just tell me what's going on," I whispered urgently. "The pendant is connected to something powerful. His voice dropped as the door began to creak on its hinges. "If they find you, they'll stop at nothing to take it." I held the pendant tighter, its warmth comforting yet eerie. Just then, shadows passed the window, and the laughter I'd heard earlier rang out, closer now. "Let us go. We don't have time," he said suddenly, his tone shifting from worry to a driven urgency. He bounded over to the back door of the cabin. "Where to?" I asked, struggling to my feet as panic surged through me. "Follow me." With that, he opened the door just wide enough for us to slip through. The cabin felt like a tomb, a shelter that had become a trap. I glanced around one last time, uncertainty clawing at me. As we edged outside, the chill night air hit me, a stark contrast to the heat of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I glanced back at the cabin, now a dark structure against the glowing moon. I forced my eyes forward, but just like in the woods, I still sensed a presence nearby. "Keep going," the stranger urged, his voice low. He led the way into a thick grove of trees. We moved quickly, quiet but frantic. The laughter was now mixed with shouting, a haunting echo that sent shivers down my spine. "What do they want with me?" I asked, trying to keep pace. "I don't know everything," he admitted, glancing back to make sure I was still there. "But you're important to them. You're connected to an ancient power that they'll do anything to possess." His words settled in my mind, heavy and unsettling. If I was important, if I held some kind of power, what did that mean for me? Before I could voice another question, we stumbled upon a clearing. At the center, a tall, weathered stone stood, engraved with symbols similar to those in the book. "That's it," he said. "That's what we need. We can use it against them." Just as we approached it, a loud rustling erupted behind us, followed by that same manic laughter. My heart dropped. "Move!" he shouted suddenly, grabbing my arm with urgency, pulling me towards the stone. We reached the pedestal just as the shadows poured into the clearing from either direction. The stranger pressed me against the stone, urgency coursing through him as the figures emerged, eyes glinting like knives in the darkness. Suddenly, they were here. The laughter turned into a taunting chant. "Your time is up!" someone shouted. I glanced around, panic rising as realization hit me. I wasn't just in danger, I was about to uncover a truth that could change everything. The laughter surrounded us, echoing in the dark like a haunting melody. My pulse quickened. I stood pressed against the cold stone, a part of me wishing I could melt into it and disappear. But the stranger didn't allow time for doubt. "Focus," he whispered, glancing at me before turning his attention to the encroaching figures. "We need to activate the stone." "What does that mean?" I breathed, terror clenching my throat. "Touch it. Let it connect with you." His voice was urgent, almost pleading that I hesitated for a moment. Me? How could I possibly connect with something so ancient and powerful? But as the shadowy figures advanced, I felt an unnatural pull towards the stone. Somehow, I knew I didn't have a choice that I reached out, fingers trembling as I grazed the surface of the stone. The moment I made contact, a surge of energy shot through me. It was as if the symbols on the stone ignited, glowing brighter in the darkness. I gasped, feeling warmth swell within me. "Keep going," the stranger urged, backing closer to me, ready to defend against the encroaching threat. The taunting voices of our pursuers grew louder, their faces becoming clearer. I could see the flashes of their twisted smiles, eyes full of greed. I locked eyes with the stranger, whose expression shifted from dread to resolve. "Channel your energy into the stone. It can protect us," he shouted. Just then, a spicy rush filled the air, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. I closed my eyes, letting the sensation guide me, my heartbeat syncing with the pulse of the stone beneath my hand. I pictured the pendant, its glow mingling with the energy flowing through me. And then I understood. The pendant wasn't just a relic, it was a part of this ancient power. I willed that energy towards the stone, hoping against hope it would be enough. The stone shuddered under my touch. Just as I focused harder, a blinding light burst from it, illuminating the clearing. I felt the rush of wind, as if the world around us was being torn apart. "Back!" the stranger shouted, shielding his eyes, but the shadows halted in their tracks, momentarily confused by the sudden light. I could barely see them through the glare, but I sensed their fear. It empowered me, fueling the connection between myself, the stone, and the pendant. "Come on," he urged again, taking my hand. I released the energy, directing it toward our pursuers. I didn't know how it would affect them, but I couldn't hold back now. A shockwave pushed forward, a barrier that pushed the shadows back at least for the moment. As their shrieks filled the air, the light began to fade, leaving a dim glow around the stone. But in that fading light, I could see them retreating, panic spreading among their ranks. "Is this enough?" I asked, breathless. The stranger nodded, though I could see he was just as shaken as I was. "We need to move before they regroup," he said, glancing at the forest beyond the clearing. "There's a place where we can hide. We need to find it." Just as we turned to leave, I noticed something on the ground where I had touched the stone. It glimmered in the moonlight, a small shard of crystal, part of the power I had just unleashed. "That's new," I muttered, picking it up. "What?" he asked, turning back. "That shard, it wasn't here before. Maybe it's important." He glanced at it, then back at me, eyes wide. "Let us go." Before I could respond, the laughter returned, closer this time, ringing with renewed fury. "Run!" he yelled, pulling me back into the trees, the shadows chasing us once more. I clutched the shard tightly as we vanished into the darkness, my mind racing with questions. Was this just the beginning, or had I unleashed something far more dangerous? As we burst through the trees, the air felt impossibly thick with tension. I kept glancing back, expecting to see the shadows closing in like hungry wolves. The laughter echoed hauntingly around us, but somehow, the shard in my hand steadied my resolve. I didn't understand what had just happened, what power I had awakened, yet the necessity to escape consumed me. The stranger pulled me through the thick foliage, his urgency keeping us just ahead of whatever sinister force pursued us. "We need to get to the old church," he urged, glancing over his shoulder. "It's the safest place nearby." "Why?" I gasped, trying to keep up with his frantic pace. "The power in the stone can amplify what you did. We can fortify it there. But I need time to prepare." His words filled me with a mix of hope and dread. What did I truly hold in my grasp? Finally, we broke out of the trees and approached the ruins of the old church, its once majestic structure now crumbling and draped in shadows. The bell tower stood tall but worn, and the large wooden doors hung ajar. I hesitated at the entrance, a chill creeping down my spine. "Quickly!" he insisted, pulling me inside just before we could hear the sounds of movement behind us, an unmistakable signal that our pursuers were close. My heart raced as I stepped into the dimly lit interior, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and old wood. Inside, the remains of elaborate stained glass windows cast flickering prisms of color across the floor. The atmosphere felt charged, a mixture of the sacred and the unknown. He turned to me with a fervor in his eyes. "Place the shard near the altar." I nodded, moving to the altar with a sense of purpose. As I set the shard down, a jolt of energy surged through it, resonating with the remnants of the stone's power. I could feel a warmth radiating from it, as if it recognized its counterpart. Then, without warning, the church doors burst open, and the shadows poured in like a tidal wave, dark forms filled with relentless malice. I felt the energy from the shard begin to flicker. "Hurry!" I shouted, glancing back at the stranger. "What do we do? It's all tied together. You need to channel it again." He shouted, eyes wide with urgency. "Focus on the pendant, on the energy. Let it guide you." I swallowed hard. How could I harness that energy again? But necessity drove me. I closed my eyes, holding the shard tighter. I envisioned the glowing power I had felt with the stone and the tether to the pendant swinging from my neck, the warmth pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Behind me, I could hear the laughter swell into frantic commands, the shadows forming a tangible wall. I had to do this. Taking a deep breath, I reached out toward the shard. "I don't know what to do," I shouted, panic rising once again. "Connect," he urged, and it sparked something inside of me. I reached out through my fear, feeling the energy flow between the shard, pendant, and me like a lifeline. In that moment, an overwhelming force surged through me, flooding into the shard, bubbling with radiant light as it exploded in a brilliant flash. The shadows recoiled, their laughter dissolving into angered yells, but I didn't stop. I felt the energy grow stronger, the glow spreading from the altar and enveloping the entire room, turning night into day. The light washed over the shadows, dispelling their dark forms one by one until they were mere wisps of smoke, howling and retreating into the darkness from which they came. I didn't dare open my eyes until every sound faded, and silence enveloped us. When I finally opened them, I saw the stranger staring at me, awe mingling with relief in his expression. "You did it." What just happened?" I breathed, my heart still racing. My body felt as if it had been electrified, alive with the remnants of the power I had tapped into. "I don't know," he replied, his brows furrowing, gaze shifting to the altar where the shard still pulsed with light, the remnants of the connection we had formed. But we've only bought ourselves time. We stood there, the echoes of my fear fading away, replaced by new uncertainties. Outside, the ominous silence loomed, almost foreboding. "Will they come back?" I asked, apprehensive. "They will," he said softly, crossing his arms in contemplation. "This isn't over." I swallowed hard, realizing that this was just the beginning of something much larger, and untold danger still lurking in the night, and we were irrevocably tied to it. As questions swirled in my mind like a storm, I felt a strange relief that I had escaped the immediate threat, yet the urgency hit me hard. "We have to figure out what this all means. There are more questions than answers." He nodded slowly, a grave look crossing his face. "An understanding that will be key to protecting you and anyone else who may be drawn into this." Standing together, the flickers of the shard illuminating the dark corners of the church, I felt the weight of everything I had yet to comprehend. As much as I wanted to feel safe, I realized that there were shadows beyond the walls, shadows that had marked my life forever. I moved to step outside as dawn began to break, ready to face whatever might come next, knowing full well that the line between light and darkness had become blurred. The future remained uncertain, and the echoes of laughter lingered in the back of my mind, shivers that promised the unfolding of a new chapter, one that would lead me deeper into a world that promised both danger and discovery.